Hello and welcome to this Sova Middle East Bite Size event. Thank you all for coming. So it's really good to see some familiar faces again. I think we've been running these events now for the last year and it's really great to see our community growing. So today we're going to be exploring virtual assessment centres. So assessing individuals for selection and development obviously is common practice, but actually using technology is something that is new to some organisations. So what we want to do today is share some tips and tricks and some ideas on how to help with candidates and client engagement in this area. So we're going to share some insights into how we've partnered with organisations in this field. We've also got an expert here today who I'll introduce shortly. So we hope you enjoy the event. Just a quick introduction from me. So as you know, I'm Becky. I'm a chartered occupational psychologist and an expert in assessment and development. I've been in the UAE for the last 7 years and prior to that working in the UAE. I'm joined by Jonathan Rook, the Managing Director of Sova. So hi, John. Do you want to say a quick hello?
Hi everyone. Yeah, thanks for joining. I think this is our second event of the new year, so yeah, welcome. Hope you find today interesting.
Thank you. And then our guest, our expert today is Kathy Chaplin. She's a principal chartered occupational psychologist from Sova Assessment in the UK. So Kathy actually has a very sort of varied career. So she's driven by challenge to translate assessment into something that's interesting and enjoyable for clients. She's an experienced consultant with over 20 years of experience. She started her career working in UK government, undertaking research and consulting. She's worked for a number of other consulting companies and she's also lived in Abu Dhabi, so knows this region very well. So we'd like to welcome you today, Kathy, to our talk show, our bite-size event. So hello.
Hi, thanks Becky. Yeah, really delighted to join you today. I'm based in the UK but been working with Becky and John on a number of projects recently, so delighted to join the webinar today.
Okay, thank you very much. So as we always do, we just go over a quick agenda. So we're going to talk a bit about assessment centres currently, a bit about where we are with them, just sort of in the region. And then we have a few slides showing our new technology. And then we're going into the Ask the Expert question and answer session with Kathy. So hopefully this should be quite enjoyable to listen to. We've got some questions that have been sent in by clients and also some that we want to know. If you do have any other questions as we go through or afterwards, please do get in touch and we can definitely get back to you. Okay, so I'm just going to hand over to John to do a very quick 30 seconds on Sova for those who are new joining.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah, so a very brief introduction to Sova. We're basically a company, we were founded back in 2015. Our sole aim is to combine the best of psychological science with the latest in technology. So everything we do from a science perspective, from a psychometric measurement perspective, is around predicting something useful for our clients, which can include things like job performance, and really using a solid base of tools which are precise and valid. We mix that with technology, so we've got a fully cloud-based solution which enables us to launch any type of assessment on that platform, which I'll cover a little bit more in a minute. But really at the heart of that as well is the candidate experience. So we're introducing something which is great for candidates, but also accurate. And we're also bringing in the latest in AI technology as well to help us with calibrating our assessments and measurement efficiency. So just an overview of the platform. As I mentioned, the candidate experience is at the heart of it. All of our portals are single sign-on, where we're using immersive platforms and portals and homepages to create a really consumer-grade candidate experience. So that's really important for us as a starting point. We have lots of different assessments available. We've got proprietary IP in the shape of our personality, cognitive, motivation assessments, but we also design a lot of assessments for our clients where we put together different assessment contents depending on their needs. We also have video interviewing. We have our virtual assessment center. We have 360 feedback. And all of this is wrapped around with our predictive analytics. So using the data to make decisions, help our clients make the best decisions about talent, whether that's for recruitment or development. And then also predicting something for the future as well in terms of job performance and how people are likely to behave in certain scenarios. As I mentioned, we're using the best-in-class technology, which is hosted on Amazon Web Services, and we do a full range of ATS integrations as well. So that's a very quick sort of overview of what we've got on our unified platform.
Okay, thank you. So just taking us back to assessment centres, so looking a bit about, where we are now versus then. So I suppose just like Dubai back in 1991, where Dubai was still here, but actually, a lot less buildings, a lot more sand. And then to Dubai, this picture's 2013. But if we think, now what, the new sites and buildings that we've got, so things are changing, but fundamentally Dubai is still Dubai. So it's the same with assessment centres. With the updates in technology, it's all about looking at how we can enhance things further, how we can make efficiencies, and how we can make the process better for candidates and clients. So looking at assessment centres then, so obviously pre-technology, they're a combination of tasks and activities under standardized conditions. Multiple candidates, multiple assessors, face-to-face settings. I think we all remember having to turn up to hotels at set times, staying late in buildings. All of these assessment centres were taking place face-to-face, limited flexibility, no online options, lots of challenges around long days, pencil and paper, stopwatches, after-hours wash-up sessions, and then coming back in the next day to start it all over again. So I think most of us will say perhaps the first 2 days were always quite enjoyable, working with colleagues, doing assessing, doing this. But actually, if you're in an assessment centre on site for 2 weeks, this becomes very labour intensive. And then writing up reports afterwards, working into the early hours to do that. And then again, collating the reports, proofing them, checking them, all of this, I think a lot of us have had assessment centre fatigue. So if we look at where they are now on the next slide, so there's still a combination of multiple activities and multiple assessors and multiple candidates under standardised conditions. But what technology can do is give us greater flexibility, both for clients and the candidates. And we're going to show you shortly some screenshots to show how different systems can look. Assessing can also take place at different times. You can be running an assessment centre if you're a global organisation with candidates all around the world. Typically, they would have had to have flown in, and again, that's other logistical requirements. So there's also options for face-to-face and online. So some of our clients do part online, then bring them in face-to-face. But really, the benefits of integrating technology at different times in the assessment centre process is reduced planning and admin time, shorter days, limited paper, and just really more efficient wash-up sessions, which we'll show you on the data wash-up sheets, which we'll show shortly. And really, all of this just gives a positive experience for candidates and assessors. And I think what we're trying to say is that assessment centres are still fundamentally the same, but you can choose to integrate technology at different parts of them. So it might just be that you want to schedule candidates more, quicker or more easily. You can use the scheduler for that, or you might want to have video interviews, or you might want to use the report output. So it's about choosing the different aspects of assessment centre technology which are going to help create efficiencies for you and your organisation. So just another couple of slides on this. If we go to the next one. So just really, again, just a very sort of basic overview of the different components of an assessment centre. So obviously we've got the identifying the job competencies, choosing exercises, scheduling, running the assessment centre, using data and reports, and the evaluation piece. So if we look at this high level, what we help clients and organisations do is to find ways at each of these points that we can make things more efficient, or just add something in which is actually going to get better results and make the assessments more predictive. And again, we'll show you all of the different options which you can include. So I think because assessment centres, it's a vast topic. There's so much to it. They are really complicated. Then it's not about necessarily doing it all at once, but it's choosing the different parts where, do you need a more standardized approach to choosing job competencies, or is it the data that takes up, data analysis, which takes up more time in your organization? So it's just worth just thinking about these different areas and thinking, actually, where could efficiencies and enhancements be made? And what I'm going to do now is just let John talk you through some of the features of the Sova assessment platform, just so you can see. We won't spend too long on this as we want to get on to the discussion with Kathy, but just to set it in a bit more context for you.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. And yeah, obviously, key thing to note, if you wanted us to do a sort of more in-depth demo on the system, just let us know, and we'd be happy to come and do that for you. But as Becky said, this is about digitizing a paper and pencil process as it then was. We started doing this in 2015 with one of our major clients in the UK, which is one of the British-based airlines. And all we're really trying to do is replicate what we used to do face-to-face, but in a digitized and virtual platform now, which we've built up over the last 5 years to include more features. And really what we're trying to do is create a seamless event, which is that for assessors and candidates. So connecting them at the right time in the right place with the right exercises, and enabling them to do what used to be done in a rather cumbersome way in a much more cost-efficient and robust manner. So just in terms of what we've got as capability, there's obviously, we kind of split this into the pre, during and post-event windows. So pre-event, it could be around communicating with candidates, inviting them to complete psychometrics, or various different pre-work steps which you might want them to take. This could even be sort of branding around your own company and organization, any messages you want to convey back to them. And then this is split into the candidate and the assessor journey. So obviously assessors then also have a portal which they can log into. They can read assessor guidance, they can look at the exercises and look at the schedule in terms of the candidates they're going to be assessing. They can even download CVs for those candidates to view that if that's part of the process. And then obviously you've got the centre itself. I'm going to show you a bit more information about that as we go through. And then after the event, from a candidate perspective, it's around making sure they receive the proper feedback, whether that's verbal or maybe just through a single feedback report, pulling together the results from all the different steps they've completed. And we can automate that fully through our platform. And then obviously from an assessor perspective, you need assessors to be able to then score and wash up the results of the assessment centre they've just completed. So the candidate briefings, again, so this is part of the candidate experience. So for us, having very clear instructions is key. There's a number of different ways we can disseminate these to candidates. It could be just information screens, or it could be things like videos, or even quick virtual web conferencing sessions where they would be able to speak to a centre facilitator to understand what the requirements are. They would have their very own dedicated homepage. This is accessed via a single link, which they will receive, and they move into their personalised homepage with the different tasks they need to complete. So you can see there's a few pre-work tasks and some psychometrics to do, and then they move into the assessment exercises themselves. Just an example of a video interview. So this is something we provide on the platform. These are really popular at the moment, I would say. We have one mechanism to administer these, which is people record their responses to predetermined questions. The other thing they can do is to do live two-way interviews, where you might have a live assessor asking structured questions, or watching them present some information back. And obviously on the scoring side, this can be configured in many different ways. But one thing we do have in terms of the scoring is an algorithm which we've been developing based on machine learning, which we are still finalizing the training of, but which will enable us to create auto scoring for the video interviews, which can then be moderated by an assessor, which is really important for us to make sure that we're not just blindly taking the advice of the algorithm, we're still letting the assessors have the final say. This is just an example of a case study role play or presentation. There's lots of different multimedia options here, so we can present information in different ways. We can present them questions or give them tasks to do in relation to the exercises. I mentioned the assessor homepage, so this is just an example of what they might have on their portal, which is information about the competencies they're assessing, some interview guidance, and some different best practice things to bear in mind. But from this portal, they can actually access the sessions directly with the different candidates or delegates that they're looking at. Yeah, and as I mentioned, the schedule would be here, and they can access the virtual rooms via this schedule, which we have in the system. After the sessions or the centres, there's also the portal itself, which has dashboards with all the scores across the different assessments. So this is a really useful overview here, where you can see some overview scores, but then there would also be reports, data extracts, and deeper dive ways of looking at the data. This is just an example from our analytics engine, which we have built into the platform. So if you want to do a bit more of a sort of deep dive into, what are the average competency scores, how are the different demographic groups scoring, you can do all of that on the platform. There's no need to kind of try to do that in Excel. So a really useful feature of the platform, actually, just to highlight that. And then I mentioned just lastly on report options, all of these types of reports can be automated. So that could be a candidate feedback report. And we really focus on making sure that candidates get the proper type of feedback that they're entitled to, and that it's straightforward and clear. So there's lots of different ways we can configure those. There's just a couple of examples there of where we might be putting in psychometric profiles, but also performance across the exercises as well. And that's just a slightly different example of the same thing. And often, actually, if we're even in a recruitment context, we will try to make the reports positive from a developmental perspective. So even if they don't get through the process, they still go away with something useful to think about for the future. And in terms of the business outcomes, I think Becky mentioned a couple of these things, but I mean, the key things that we've seen with the clients that we've used this with, the cost savings are immediate, actually, in terms of being able to connect people globally, reduce travel time, reduce the admin time, and reduce the actual time that people need to spend dedicated to centres. You might be able to run a centre in half a day, whereas in the traditional way, it probably required a whole day out of the office. If you're connecting people virtually, this really is a big saving from a cost perspective for organisations. And obviously, having the virtual experience makes it feel really, modern and engaging. And the feedback we've had from, both candidates and assessors is that it's a really positive experience. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is enable sort of robust decision making. So having all the data in one place, having it all in one single dashboard and one extract or one report is really a powerful thing to have in terms of the report outputs and the outputs from the centre. And as we mentioned before, everything can be configured precisely how the organisations and our clients would like it. So that's just something to bear in mind in terms of the different solutions that we can put in place. And the dashboard, which is real time as well. So if you have a centre facilitator, they can monitor the scores as they're coming through, which is also another really good feature in terms of this platform. Okay, I think back to Becky. Okay,
thank you. And I think probably what's striking everyone is there's an awful lot to it. And we're conscious that John whizzed through those slides, but there's so much. Assessment centres are complex. There's a lot to them. So this is why it really is about taking a step back and looking at the different areas that you could enhance rather than changing it all up at once. But what we're going to do now is just talk to Kathy, find out more, see what's going on in the UK, see how people are using assessment centres, and get hopefully some ideas on what we can do to enhance our assessment processes further. Okay, so hello, Kathy.
Hi there.
Hi, if we go to the first question, so some of these questions have been asked by clients and some are just what we want to know. So first question, so what assessment centre trends are you currently seeing in the UK or globally, or what are clients asking you for?
Yeah, I think echoing what John was saying, we're being asked to replicate assessment processes that have traditionally been face-to-face. So we've all lived through a period over the last couple of years where so much of our lives have gone online or virtual because it's just not been possible to meet face-to-face. So we've had a lot of clients in the last sort of couple of years who need to have quite quickly change the way they do things and sort of pivot to make it a virtual experience for candidates so that assessments can continue, because obviously we know that recruitment still has had to happen, even though logistically it's been quite difficult to see people face to face. So being asked to replicate things traditionally that have been face to face. So we're seeing a lot of kind of assessment centres which use multi-methods. So it might be mixes of online assessments or personality questionnaires, cognitive assessments, SJTs, as maybe set as pre-work, and then being able to implement clients' exercises on our virtual platform in a digital way. I think something else that clients are also asking for and really like about our system is that we have integrated video conferencing within the Sova platform. So rather than candidates and assessors having to sort of jump between different platforms to join virtual rooms, clients really seem to like the functionality we have where it can all be done within Sova. It just adds to that candidate experience, which is so important, as John was saying. And I think the third point is, I think I saw it on one of your slides, it's, clients want it to be a virtual experience, but not a distant experience for candidates. So although it's virtual, they still want to offer candidates that kind of human support, whether that's a live briefing session or an assessor being in one of our virtual rooms throughout the whole process, so candidates can drop in and ask questions and get support, or whether it's a more of a digital solution, whether that's a video, but something that really speaks to candidates to explain the process and perhaps give an insight into the organisation.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds really interesting. So it seems like, I suppose, everyone's asking for everything. There's no end to what you're doing, what you're having to create. I particularly like the way that you're saying that actually you've got the person, the human touch as well, having someone actually behind the screen that people know, or there for, tech issues or to help assessors or candidates. Yes. I think that's really important as well. And yeah, could you just sort of following on from that, just talk us through any interesting assessment centre projects that you've got just to really bring it to life? Because I think there's so much that can be done. It would just be useful to hear, an example of what has been done.
Yeah, sure. So just thinking of a scenario where exactly that, we were asked to replicate a face-to-face process recently for a global organisation. They would run regular assessment centres for senior managers within institutions within the European Parliament. And they asked us, they wanted to continue that through the whole sort of COVID period, but needed it to be online rather than face-to-face. So that was great, actually, because we were able to take their exercise materials and use it as an opportunity to, I guess, give those a refresh and an update in terms of look and feel. So we've got a fantastic designer who works with us, and she was able to really make these materials kind of come alive on the screen. So we had branding and images, graphs. You can make it look like there were emails. So for me, that was a real highlight to show the client how updated it could look, and use that as an opportunity to do that. So we implemented an assessment centre. There was a mix of pre-work, which includes personality and cognitive assessments. Now, for legacy reasons, they wanted to stick with the test provider of those assessments. So it was a third-party test provider. So what we were able to do was integrate with that third-party test provider. So although candidates entered the Sova platform with a single link were taken to their interactive homepage, they were able to, from that homepage, click on a hotspot and go to the third-party test provider and complete their tests. Those results automatically pull back into Sova. So really kind of seamless experience for candidates. Everything was in parallel languages, so we would translate everything to 2 languages. So candidates were able to select their language and complete the whole process in whichever language they wanted. And I think the sort of final thing that made it quite interesting was that our client, they had a lot of validity data that built up over the years on their assessments, and they wanted to feed that into the scoring as well. So as John showed the dashboard with the scores, we were able to create algorithms in our system that meant that we were able to present not only the detail of the score in terms of scores on assessments and exercises, but also calculate overall scores, which was able to incorporate some of the validity data and the weightings that our client wanted us to use.
Okay, thank you. No, that sounds really interesting. I think it's, really useful that the system can take other assessments and, working with those effectively competitors, because it really is about the technology supporting the assessment process in the best way possible, rather than having to switch to everything Sova. So no, that's really interesting. And what were some of the outcomes or feedback that you had?
Yeah, I think the most pleasing feedback really, I think, was from the assessors who were involved in the process, because they'd been used to doing it in a face-to-face way, but it just made things so much more efficient for them. They were able to enter scores and capture their notes in the system, and then we produced a report for assessors which contained all the scores in one place, all the assessor notes, just made it such a more streamlined process for the assessors themselves. I think that was also probably one of the challenges, was the assessors' familiarity with sort of this kind of technology. So we did spend a lot of time on assessor training and assessor comms, but I think that really paid off because of the feedback we got.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think quite often the assessors are forgotten. There's focus on the candidate experience, but the assessors are actually spending more time in the system than the candidates are, and if they're not in the best environment or best conditions, they're not going to score the best way. So, that's just as important. So really interesting. And how do you think then assessment centres will change in the future, or what new developments do you personally think would be useful?
Yeah, I think that, as virtual is going to become the norm for all level of roles within an organisation, and not just, perhaps we've traditionally seen it for high volume roles where the cost savings are, I suppose, more obvious. But I think the last couple of years has shown that it can be used really effectively for more senior roles as well. So I think we'll see that. I think that trend will continue. I think we'll also see organisations or our clients kind of cotton on to the fact this is a really great opportunity to engage with candidates and see it as a two-way process. So giving candidates insight into the role or even the organisation. So often see on the interactive homepage now that clients will want to include branding videos or promotional videos to really give a great candidate experience and sort of sell the organisation to the candidate, if you like. And then I think also we'll see more and more integration. So John had a slide with all the different ATSs that Sova have experience of integrating with, and I think we'll see that more and more. So it is a real seamless experience for candidates from the moment they apply right through the recruitment process.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I think, like you say, it's a whole system. It's not just for the assessing, it can be for the marketing, the brands. I remember years ago working in the UK for a large retail company, and we did assessment centres, but we used to put up boards with the branding, products to price, all of these things. So
Yes.
candidates came out, or had a bit of spare time, they could wander around like a student fair, pick up information. So I guess that's the same thing, and it's anything to keep engaged. So endless possibilities.
Yes.
The integration as well, which is useful. And anything to add on that, John, that you think for future trends or anything you'd like to see?
Yeah, I mean, just sort of thinking about it, I mean, I think there's going to be sort of different sort of assessment formats, so one of the things we've been working on is bringing in some, let's call it gamified assessment content. And so, one of the challenges with that content traditionally has been that it lacks the validity in terms of, we use traditional cognitive testing because it's predictive and it's really robust. And there was a question mark around how valid is some of this content. But I think, we're working on content which is somewhere between a sort of traditional item and a gamified item. But the point is it will be more engaging. So I think there'll be sort of new content that we can bring into the the assessment process to kind of take people into different avenues, and the adaptive testing even that we have on the platform. So if you're completing an SJT, or even if you're completing some type of questionnaire, about your work experience, it can take you into different places depending on how you answer. So I think just making it more interactive, more engaging, the actual content itself in terms of the assessments. And then, let's see what else we can do with the exercises, because I mean, we're already making the exercises as kind of multimedia rich as we can, but there might be more we can do with sort of virtual reality, or once that becomes a little bit more mainstream, there might be more we can do there. But they're the sort of things that from a technology perspective we're sort of looking at. I think, as Kathy says, just having everything integrated, because before we used to, even the pre-center process was cumbersome. You might have 4 different links to complete tests, and then an administrator has to spend hours downloading reports or getting them. I mean, all of that's sort of gone now. So I think clients are realizing I can just have everything in one place. And even if it's doing some pre-hire assessment, and then only taking certain candidates through into an assessment center, all of this can be automated and delivered via the platform. So yeah, I think they're the sort of main things.
Yeah, that's a good point, that you can have decision sort of points throughout the process, and with that single link, candidates can be presented with assessments at different stages. They don't have to see everything in one go, so it can be used as a way to sort of move through the funnel and reduce the number of candidates as you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Really interesting. I think just touching on your point as well, that it's not just for volume assessments, and actually it can be for executives as well. I think sometimes technology, well, it used to be very, very expensive to sort of implement something just for a couple of people to assess a month or a week, but actually now it's all there, it's all made, so it can be as cost effective as buying the assessments that you would use, buying the assessor's time. So yeah, I think that's really interesting as well. And just conscious of time with the next couple of questions. We go to the next slide. And so Kathy, what advice would you give clients who are doing everything paper and pencil at the moment, or they've started to integrate technology? Any advice to sort of use more technology?
Yeah, I think a big one would be consider the level of familiarity or comfort your candidate population has with technology. So worked on a big project recently where the candidate population didn't necessarily have kind of access during the day to laptops. They were less familiar probably with using some of this tech. So we had to spend a lot of time considering how would we support candidates through this. So is it the the pre-assessment centre comms, or a facilitated, what we decided actually to do was do a facilitated briefing at the start of the assessment centre, so a live briefing where candidates can ask questions. And then there was always someone in a virtual room throughout the session where candidates could drop into and ask for support or questions. I think that's key to making sure things go smoothly. Yeah. And the other advice I'd give as well is also consider how you're going to use the data. There's an awful lot of data our system can provide. I talked a little bit about different sort of scoring options. I think sometimes it can, with a focus at the start of a project like this, clients can be very focused on the assessment centre, the content, and sometimes the thoughts can be the scores can be a bit of an afterthought. But we will always work with clients to consider that upfront, really, because it's so critical, because those are how decisions are made. So it's important to think that through right from the start. And obviously we've got a lot of experience in that, so we can provide lots of support for clients with how to use the data.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's what we tend to find as well. Sometimes it's just knowing what data is available or what to do with the data or the different options, or just hearing how another client's using it. So really good advice. And finally, what are your 3 assessment centre must-haves for success?
I would say number 1, think about the candidate journey. So again, the support candidates might need, or information you want to pass on to candidates. Secondly, I would say think about the assessor journey. So what training requirements for assessors as well. Report options to make things easy for assessors to make decisions. And then I think the third thing is just test, test the process, go through it, make sure everyone's familiar with it before you start using it for live. I think those would be the top 3 must-haves.
Yeah, thank you. No, they sound good. And the testing, definitely. With everything, there's always teething problems or things don't work. So it's testing, being comfortable. And I suppose if we all think now how we use Zoom or even this Bright Talk platform, when you first use something, you don't know what to press or what to do. But actually, over time, it just becomes second nature.
Yes.
So good. And John, any 3 must-haves for you? Anything?
No, I mean, I obviously agree with what Kathy said, 100%. I suppose if I was to pick 3, communications to candidates around the process, what they're going to be expected to do, feedback, when and how, when are they going to get that? Is it just a report or will it be verbal? And then to Kathy's point earlier about, thinking about, advice for clients, but it's also thinking about what are you going to do with the data? How are you going to use it? How are you going to make decisions with it? How are you going to feed it back? What do you want to present back to candidates or keep to yourself? So, I think they're the sort of top 3 for me.
Yeah, good. And I think, like you're both saying, with everything, it's the communication, the process, the data. It's knowing all of these things up front. So actually, maybe the theme here is planning out, spending a bit of time planning out your assessment approach, what technology you're using, how you're going to look at it, what you could do, what options are available. Sometimes, the obvious is the best place to start, really. But no, thank you very much, both of you, for your contributions, and Kathy, for you, coming on and sharing all of this. If people want to get in touch or want to know more information or from you, are you okay if people contact you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn or through the Sova, Sova email address. Be delighted to connect with people.
That's great. Or via us, or we should say we have our Sova community. So if anyone wants more regular updates, we do post this content onto the community. The community also has lots of training courses, facts, information. So do go on there, or connecting with like-minded individuals. If you need, I think the link's quite small on there. If you want a link, just let me know and I can send you a link. Our March event is going to be on technology and assessment trends. So hope to have you there. Like we say, for every event, if you have any questions around this, so this can be anything to do with assessment, not just assessment centres, then please send in your questions beforehand. And also we do have a discovery call service as well. So if you want any more information, then let us know and we can have a quick chat before seeing if there's anything more in a more formal capacity that you want to know. And really just to say thank you very much for joining, and please do give us your feedback or any questions that you may have. Any final questions or, well, final points from John or Kathy?
No, just thanks, Kathy, for joining and sharing some insight with us. I think it's really useful to hear all of that. And thanks everyone for joining. Yeah,
thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.